I'd like to call to order the May meeting of the Suffolk Historic Landmarks Commission. Could we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Bailey,
President accounted for.
Commissioner Bissell,
Here.
Commissioner Colley, Vice Chairman Darton,
Yes.
Commissioner Draper, Chairman Hobbs,
Here.
Commissioner King,
Here.
Commissioner Riddick,
Here.
Commissioner Turner.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, the minutes have been distributed. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to read over the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Is there a motion that we approve the minutes as presented? Have a motion? Is there a second? Have a motion and a second. All in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so ordered. First item of business. Request for certificate of appropriateness, HLC 2021-009, submitted by Jason D. Weeks Construction, applicant and property owner for new construction at a property located at 112 Welland Street. The property is further identified as zoning map 34G17, Block A, Parcel 204, Suffolk Voting Borough, zoned RM, Residential Medium Zoning District, and HC, Historic Conservation Overlay District. Could we have the staff report, please?
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Historic Landmarks Commission. I would like to go and start off and apologize. The attachments, there is a mistake. With the elevations, I had mislabeled the west and east elevation. So I'm going to go ahead and pass around these so that way everything's labeled correctly, so that way there's no confusion as this body is discussing this request.
Thank you.
So the subject property is an undeveloped lot located at 112 Welland Street at the corner of Welland Street and Jackson Street. This property is part of the West End Historic District boundary expansion that was done back in 2004. The boundary expansion contains 10 primary resources located along the eastern portion of Welland Street. The West End boundary expansion specifically features vernacular house types, more distinguished by their massing than a definable architectural style. So the property is zoned residential medium density zoning district and HC historic conservation overlay district. As stated, the subject property is an undeveloped lot and as such is not listed in the National Register of Historic Places. So the Historic District Design Guidelines provides guidance when reviewing new construction of residential structures. It is important to note that the guidelines are not meant to be overly specific, dictate certain designs, or encourage the copying or mimicking of particular historic styles while ensuring that the compatibility of the new structure is compatible with its historic surroundings. The characteristics and the materials used for the surrounding properties have been evaluated as part of this review. So with this slide, the images, the top one shows the view of the eastern side of Welland Street north of the subject property. The subject property is outlined in red. And then below the photo is the view of the eastern side of Welland Street south of the subject property. So do a quick overview of each structure. 110 Welland Street, the residential structure features a porch with a hipped roof and has vinyl siding with 6/6 windows. At 108 Welland Street is a similar style residential structure with a porch that does not have any railings. The structure has 2/2 windows, and as you can see in the image above, it does have diamond-shaped windows on the southern elevation. 447 West Washington Street is the J.C. Causey Jr. House, which is more commonly known today as the First Lady. This structure is a Queen Anne style with a multi-gable roof. It does feature weatherboard siding and wood shingles. And then with the image below, 116 West Washington Street, the residential structure has 2 stories with vinyl siding and a hipped roof extension on the south elevation. This residential structure has 6/6 windows. And then last but not least is 118 Welland Street. This house is the most distinctive in the boundary expansion. This is a 1.5-story folk Victorian side gable house, which has 2 distinctive front-facing gables with 6/6 windows. Now, this is the western side of Welland Street, so it's across from the subject property. Starting with 113 Welland Street, the structure consists of a wood frame with vinyl siding, 2/2 wood windows, a single-leaf wood door with lights, and the roof is a gable roof with asphalt shingles. 115 Welland Street has weatherboard siding, wood windows, and a wood door with an oval light. The roof is a gable roof with asphalt shingles. Additionally, this porch is a wraparound porch with Tuscan columns. 117 Welland Street, this is a 2.5-story residential structure with a wood frame with aluminum siding, wood windows, and a hip metal roof with a wraparound porch as well. 119 Welland Street has vinyl siding with a cross metal standing seam roof and a wraparound porch. And then last but not least on this street that it's shown in the images, 123 Welland Street has weatherboard siding with a side gable roof with asphalt shingles and 6/6 windows. So on either side of Welland Street, the residential structures that are located around the subject property feature a mix of material and have different style porches. Some of the houses have wraparound porches and some porches fit simply just the length of the front facades. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story residential structure at 112 Welland Street with a driveway located at the rear of the residential structure that will have access onto Jackson Street. So the residential structure is proposed to be constructed on a raised slab with a brick skirt and rowlock 24 inches above finished grade, with 2 steps that lead up to a front porch and a rear porch. The front porch on the west elevation is proposed to be supported with white 6-inch square fiberglass columns. The main gable roof and the porch roof is proposed to be constructed with architectural shingles to consist of a charcoal color. The siding of the residential structure is proposed to be 6.5-inch white single beaded vinyl siding. So the first floor on the west elevation is proposed to have a 4/4 double mold vinyl clad wood window and a Craftsman-style fiberglass door with a quarter light with 4 glass panels with a grid, both to consist of the color black. The second floor on the west elevation will have 3 4/4 black vinyl-clad wood windows. This is the north elevation, which is proposed to have a 4/4 double mold vinyl-clad wood window on the first floor and 3 4/4 vinyl-clad wood windows on the second floor, all in the color black. The east elevation facing the rear of the property will have the same design and color windows, 1 4/4 double mold window on the second floor and 2 4/4 vinyl-clad wood windows on the first floor. Additionally, a rear entrance to the residential structure is proposed and will have a fiberglass door with a 3/4 light with 4 glass panels with a grid. This is the south elevation facing Jackson Street, which will have the single white bead vinyl siding across it with no windows. So staff has reviewed the application based on the Historic District Design Guidelines and the Unified Development Ordinance. As stated, the applicant is proposing to use 6.5 white single beaded vinyl siding. The design guidelines stated that brick, stucco, and wood siding are the most appropriate materials for new residences, and that the vinyl siding shall be a minimum of 6 inches in width and beaded will be considered on individual basis. Staff has reviewed the request to use the 6.5 white single beaded vinyl siding and has determined that the siding is consistent with the surrounding residential structure siding with both the type and color of material. As such, the requested siding would be appropriate for the new construction. The applicant is proposing a gable-style roof with architectural shingles in the color charcoal. The form of the roof is similar to other gable roofs that can be seen along the portions of Welland Street located within the historic district. So the design guidelines state that traditional roofing materials, such as standing seam metal, are preferred over asphalt shingles but are not required. Asphalt shingles, as stated in the design guidelines, are not preferred. However, some surrounding contributing structures have asphalt shingle roofs, and the proposed architectural shingle roof is an upgrade when compared to other styles of asphalt shingles. The proposed architectural shingle roofing material is appropriate for the new construction along Welland Street since it is compatible with the surrounding structures. The windows are proposed to be 4/4 vinyl-clad wood windows to consist of the color black. So the design guideline states new windows may be constructed of painted wood, metal-clad, or vinyl-clad. As such, the proposed windows meet the window requirement for new construction. So on to the porches. Porches are common on residential structures within the historic district. Along Welland Street, the majority of the residential structures all have front porches with white columns. Some structures have porch railings and some do not. The front porch on the west elevation and the rear porch on the east elevation are proposed to be supported with the 6-inch square white fiberglass columns, which are consistent with the visible appearance and the columns seen on the surrounding properties. So the columns are proposed to be white to match the siding of the home and are appropriate for the new construction as the visual appearance of the column and the width of the porch reflects the surrounding porches. So the front door on the west elevation is proposed to be a 36-inch by 80-inch Craftsman style fiberglass door with a quarter light with 4 glass panels with a grid. And the rear door on these elevation of the structure is proposed to be a 36-inch by 80-inch fiberglass door with a 3/4 light door with 4 glass panels with a grid. So the front and rear door as proposed are to be black to match the windows. Both doors have a Craftsman style and are seen elsewhere within the historic district. So the proposed new construction is not a Craftsman style home. However, as previously stated, the intent of the design guidelines for new constructions is to allow creativity, and the proposed Craftsman style doors bring an architectural element to the residential structure that is seen elsewhere in the historic district. Lastly, the applicant proposed a driveway to be installed at the rear of the structure that will have access onto Jackson Street. Driveways are common throughout the historic district, and typically driveways and garages are located at the rear of the residential structure, which is similar to the location of the proposed driveway. So overall, the proposed 2-story residential structure is compatible with the surrounding properties in materials, colors, elements, and massing. The proposed residential structure does not replicate historic materials, but rather complements the surrounding structures. Based on the previous findings of facts, staff recommends approval of the following actions requested by Certificate of Appropriateness HLC 2021-00009 with the conditions noted above and in staff's report. So this concludes my presentation, and I will be available for any questions you guys may have following the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open the floor to the public hearing. Is there anyone present who'd like to speak in support of this application?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir.
Okay.
Sir. All right.
Thank you.
And if you would, please come to the second mic. You're good. You're good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm Jason Weeks, the owner of the property and the contractor, developer as well, if you would. I appreciate your time this morning. Grace has done a wonderful job of presenting everything for me. I really don't know what to say to follow up with her. She was very thorough, and she's been a blessing along the way, holding my hand and providing all the information as well. So I'm not sure what I would need to follow up with. We've tried to be thorough and detailed all the information to meet the criteria. Planning has guided me in a few directions other than a standard, typical new construction home that I'd need to meet some requirements, and I feel like we have. But if you have any questions or any details that need to be addressed, I'll do my best. I'll apologize in advance. I'm not familiar with a lot of the terminology and maybe some of the items you might be looking for, but I will do my best to get the answers for you ASAP. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Anyone like to speak opposed to this application? Okay.
Good morning. I'm not sure that I'd say I'm opposed to it. I just don't know how it is going to get on the small lot. I'm at 110 Welland. I'm Miss Saunders. I purchased this lot when it first went on sale years ago. I called the city. I said, what's the size of building? They gave me the size, and it would have been half of Jackson Street to put a building there. Now they have got it so you can put a building. I don't mind a building being there, but they do not have enough room between my fence and the foundation to work. That's going to be a feat as to how they're going to put this house up. And that's my objection. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all right, let's see, proponents, you could get one more chance to speak in favor, in response, if you'd like.
Yes, sir, for me?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I approached the city several months ago. It was with the Zoning Board of Appeals because this property did front on two streets, considered two road frontages. So by code, it wouldn't meet the setbacks with those two frontages. And it was an existing lot where a house was demolished maybe 20 years ago. And I hate to speak on that. I'm not the most familiar with the exact time frame. But there was an existing dwelling before. So when I purchased the lot, I went in front of zoning. They approved a little bit of an encroachment into the setbacks on Jackson that were needed to approve this. And we did obtain approval, and we were fine on our setbacks up against the adjacent property in the rear. It was just the frontage on Jackson that we had to ask for a little bit of extra encroachment on. And they did provide that approval. I'm sorry I don't have that paperwork with me, but that was addressed and it was met with approval. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll close the public hearing on this item. My thought here is that I'm not sure this fits within, the only authority we have is what's written in these guidelines specifically, and it's pretty much deals with architectural details and things like that, and not setbacks and those kinds of things. And so I'll ask the attorney, there's an attorney here, I think, that can straighten me out on this, but I'm not sure this is the right venue to bring that up, but can you, sir, can you comment on this?
Chairman Hobbs, you're correct. The responsibility of the HLC deals with design guidelines, and so the setback issue is not an issue before this commission.
Thank you. I guess maybe after we deal with the situation here, might call your councilman or whatever and take it up along that channel, if it's still a concern after we deal with this here. Okay, we'll close public hearing. Any discussion among commissioners?
Yes. I have one question before beginning my commentary regarding this particular property. And I would like to ask Mr. Weeks, when was this building permit submitted?
Sir, I don't have my paperwork on that part with me. I think it was about 2 months ago. I wasn't familiar with the street being historical. It totally was beyond me. This is the first time I've ever built on a historic site and had to follow these guidelines. So I approached it as a normal new construction build. I turned in my plans, site plan, the whole paperwork package. And Miss Stephanie from Community Development called one morning and said it was approved. She said she's going to send me a link to pay the fee and I could go ahead and start. And within an hour, she called me back, put the brakes on and said one glitch. That's when this whole historic committee meeting and the requirements were brought to my attention, and that stopped everything. And that was I missed the last meeting. I was out of town in April, and it was about 3 weeks before that I was notified and we started the process. So without knowing for certain, and I don't want to misspeak, maybe 3 months ago, I turned in for my building permit. Because they're usually 4 to 6 weeks for approval, and I had met that time frame, and we were starting to move forward.
More questions? Go ahead, Mr. Bailey. Go ahead.
Second question I'd like to ask, what is the property setback from the neighboring house and the street?
Let me find my site plan really quick. So with the current zoning, my front setback from Wellens is 25 foot. On the north side, and I can't remember this lady's address, I think it's a 5-foot setback, and that's current code, and I didn't encroach on that. I didn't have to push the boundaries. That was the minimum requirement, and that's what was needed to set the house corner on to then fit in with Jackson Street frontage.
May I continue?
If you have another question, go ahead. All right.
No,
All right, I'll give you a chance just a minute, but let me say again, this is not our responsibility. I mean, we don't get into setbacks or not anywhere written in the guidelines that we have authority to question. I mean, I think I don't believe that this is something that should be a basis for our discussion, our vote, put it that way. If you want to continue, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to give a little bit of portion of my time to the resident who raised her hand to speak, sir,
Okay.
if I may.
Do you want to speak now? Go ahead.
Did you have it surveyed?
Yes, ma'am.
It doesn't match my survey.
Okay, it's a question from the
We
sir.
can't have this kind of dialogue between the parties during the public hearing. All of the comments need to be addressed to the commission and from the commission,
Okay,
rather than
yep.
have these parties exchanging conversation in the
Right. Good
council
point.
chambers.
All right, that is, all right, everybody catch all that. The conversation needs to be
Yes.
addressed to us and then us back.
Yes, sir. I only have one copy of the survey, the site plan. If needed, I could pass that on if it's required.
Okay, and, all right, who's the next lady? What was your,
Morning. I'm requesting to speak on behalf of zoning. My name is Melvion Knight, and I'm the Assistant Zoning Administrator and Enforcement Manager for the City of Suffolk. And I just wanted to provide a little clarity on the setbacks. This property is located in our RM district, which is our residential medium zoning district. The required setback for the front is 25 feet. The required side is 10 feet. And the required rear will be 25. Because this is a corner lot, it would have a side setback on the portion that's abutting Jackson Road of 25 feet. Per the BZA application 2020-0007, the applicant was granted a reduction in the portion abutting the Jackson Road side to 8.4 feet, and the interior lot line was reduced down to 5 feet. So just to provide clarity on that, that Board of Zoning Appeals application granted him access to build a lot of 20 feet in width to comply with the ordinance standards. I hope I addressed your question.
anybody have a question for her?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Okay, and any other questions concerning the architectural aspects of it, of the building? Any discussion?
Well, I make a motion that we accept the recommendations of the
Okay,
city, that we approve the application according to the items they have listed below. So that's my motion.
have a motion, is there a second? Is there a second? Was there a second to that motion?
Second, yeah.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. We still have discussion, so Mr. Bailey, go ahead.
My discussion was this, and I'll make my commentary very brief, because I have discussed with some of the residents who are homeowners who've been in the community for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and I want to deal with a quote from a man who was born in January 11th, 1755, who was a banker, economist, an advisor to our former president, who was a surveyor of the Dismal Swamp. And the quote goes as this: "If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything." That was established by Alexander Hamilton, the writer of the Federalist Papers and also one of the founding fathers of this country. So my question to our commissioners is this: if we stand for what's going on at 112 Wellens, what is it that we as a historic landmark community standing for? If you look on page 3 for the material that's been provided by the planning department, page 3 at the bottom, it says new infill construction should contribute to and emphasize the characteristics that define the district's uniqueness. And so I would like to know from somebody that's brighter than myself, how is this defining any portion of the district's uniqueness? If you go to section 2, it says that in the final sentence, section 3, on that same page, page 4, it says that examine the forms of historic contributing buildings and avoid taking design clues from non-contributing structures. This particular structure, which we have already viewed on screen and in our package that was mailed to our individual houses, is the same type of structures that are going on in Chuckatuck, Route 10, and low-income areas such as South Boston, Saratoga, and the like. So if you look at also page 5, section 5, in the last sentence, it says, reinforce the human scale of the historic district. And I would like to speak just one moment on that. The human scale is the operative word I'm speaking about in regards to this. I'm a resident of the historic landmark community. And sometimes I walk to that corner store with my son to get a burger and fry. And you may go in there and be startled by some of the patrons because they're carrying weapons or they're exposed. If you're not startled by that, you should be bothered by when you walk out and look towards the right, there's a abandoned house at 437 Smith Street that's owned by an influential businessman that's been boarded up and been deemed by the city since March 29, 2018 as uninhabitable. It's on record and in police reports that it houses prostitution and drug addicts in that particular house. If that doesn't startle you when you walk out that store, look to your left at 129 Welland Street, which is just a few houses down from 112 Wellens, whereas that house is boarded up and inhabits the same kind of activity. So my question is, Mr. Weeks, you don't live in the community, you're trying to buy property in a community, and my concern is this, is that if we have another resident or potential homeowner to come in this community and be exposed to that which I've already aforementioned, will we be in a situation where we will have another slumlord that will continue to perpetuate the activity that's already on Wellens? And I'm not saying this is a bad community, because this community has housed at 204 Welland Street, whereas you had the players that were of Mr. Marcus Elam and Tony London who played in the backyard. You had Pastor Weeks, who stayed in that abandoned house, who's now owned by B.J. Willie. We've had nurses, dentists, doctors, lawyers, and all kinds of people who have been a part of this community. So my question to us is this. Number one, does this construction truly match or is compatible to that which is in the historic community? Number two, do we have two sets of rules for those who live, who are homeowners in the community, and those that are developers? My question number three is, the National Low-Income Housing Coalition says that there are ways to revitalize neighborhoods without gentrifying them. One is to use a positive development model that builds a new vision of community, health, and sustainable that benefits all residents. So will this particular construction benefit Mr. Weeks, or will it benefit all residents of the historic landmark community that abides in Jackson, Welland, Smith, and St. James? My next question is, this house was for sale, has an MLS listing on Zillow, That's why I asked Mr. Weeks a question, when he get the building permit. I think it's almost insulting to us as commissioners who have to vote on approving this property that it already has an ML listing with the exact same photo on Zillow prior to us even approving the doggone property. That's a shame and disgrace. So this situation is not about just
Excuse
appropriateness.
me just a minute.
This is not just about. I'm almost finished, sir.
All right, and this is going to be the last word. This is going to be, say it, this discussion is out of order. And please let me know, excuse me, we got an attorney here. Can you will you tell me yes or no that this is out of order?
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's the chairman's responsibility to maintain order and decorum in the hearing, but certainly comments of members are permitted, but it's in your discretion in terms of how the meeting
All right, I'm saying it's out of order because it's out of our hand. This is not a question that we can deal with, that we have the authority to deal with.
So I'll make this last comment.
Go ahead and make your last
I
comment,
think
then
they're
that's
out
it.
of order, and I'll conclude with this.
Okay.
I cannot advocate something that gives a perception of gentrification, whereas we're buying, building, and banking. The residents are not benefiting from this whatsoever. The treasurer office down the hall on the left is benefiting from this, from getting tax revenue. Point blank, the Bible says that people who look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And so I'm telling you as commissioners, as you look at the heart of the people who live there, as you look at the heart of the people who are developing there, and that you look at the people like Lady at 110 who's concerned about this particular project. I've talked with different residents who are concerned about this project, and they're very much against it. So my voice is for those people.
Okay.
I'm not speaking about George Bailey. This is what the residents
Is this
said.
your last comment? Are we finished? All right. Is any other discussion among commissioners? If not,
I call for the question.
okay. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner
On the
Bailey?
question.
No.
Commissioner Bissell? Vice Chairman Darton? Yes. Commissioner Draper?
Yes.
Chairman Hobbs?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner Riddick?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item of business. Request for certificate of appropriateness, HLC 2021-0012, submitted by Joseph Webb Sr., Lansman Investors Incorporated, property owner for the exterior and site alterations to the property located at 453 West Washington Street. The property is further identified as zoning map 34G17, Block 5, Parcel B, Suffolk Voting Borough, Zone CBD, Central Business District, and HC, Historic Conservation Overlay District. We have staff report, please.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Historic Landmarks Commission. The applicant is requesting the installation of a black aluminum privacy fence. This subject property is located at 453 West Washington Street at the corner of West Washington and Welland Street and is known as the Nansemond Insurance Building. The property is part of the West End Historic District. The subject property is within the Central Business District zoning district and is comprised of two parcels, one with the Nansemond Insurance Building and the other with a parking lot, both under the same ownership. This is an aerial view of the property from the south and the north. The building is a contributing structure circa 1955, representing New Dominion-style architecture. This is also a view across the street of the First Lady on the other side of Welland Street. The First Lady currently has a black metal privacy fence. The applicant is being brought before you today due to Section 31-413G7, Roman numeral 8, which requires fences more than 3.5 feet in height to be reviewed as a major action by the HLC. In the design guidelines, specific guidance is not provided for fences on commercial properties. However, Since the subject property is adjacent to several residential properties, the appropriateness of the material and design of the fence were taken into consideration. As mentioned, the applicant is specifically requesting a black aluminum privacy fence. Privacy fence will start at the southeast corner of the building. See if you can see it right here. As a 6-foot tall fence at Welland Street with a gated entrance. The fence will continue along the subject area's property line until it joins the property line with 457 West Washington Street, where it will run for approximately 125 feet. At that point, the fence will drop to 4 feet until it terminates with West Washington Street. So right here is where it'll drop to 4 feet. Fence will use Ideal's main style fence. The gate on Welland Street will be a walk gate style fence sized to allow vehicle ingress and egress. Within the conditions that staff have put in our staff report, the fence will use the residential or parkway dimensions. Additionally, the gate will not be permitted to block the sidewalk or impede pedestrians using the sidewalk. Based on the UDO and design guidelines, staff has no issues with the information provided by the applicant. Based on the previous findings of fact, staff recommends approval for Certificate of Appropriateness, HLC 2021-00012, with the conditions noted in staff's report. This concludes my report. I'll stand by for any questions after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody in here who would like to speak in favor of the application?
Hello, I'm Joe Webb. I'm the second generation owner of that building. My father built it, and now the next generation is coming in behind me. So I grew up in near the historical district on Linden Avenue, and later moved to Lakeside. The next generation lives in Riverview and Lakeside. So I say that we're familiar with the community. We've been part of the community a long time. We've been at that building now for 3 generations, and there is a need for security. We've had a break-in into the our back building, which was a storage building. Both our buildings were alarmed. My son went up there about 2 o'clock in the morning. The police came too, and at that time, apparently the people who were still in the back building, we didn't look in the back building, they were still in a generator. When we left the property, then I guess they took the generator on out of the building. So there's a lot of foot traffic through there. It's a cut through to avoid the stoplight. And we will still continue to provide parking in our lot for the First Lady events. We've always welcomed their usage, and of course we'll open the gate. We have a pretty good relationship with them. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor of the application? Anybody like to speak in opposition to the application? If not, we'll close the floor to public hearing on this item. Is there a discussion among commissioners? Yes, sir.
Just had a question about the gate. Looking at the submittal for the fence itself, it has like arrowhead pointers on the top of the balusters, and then when you go to the gate, it's just a square gate. On the page of our submittal that has the gates with that one particular gate circled, I noticed they have other samples of gates that show the profile of the top of the fence just continues over the gate and goes on. Is it possible to get a gate that matches the fence, the top edge of the fence? I'm just curious why we change styles at the gate.
I'll ask the fence people. I assume it is. So I think those pictures were just samples they gave us to choose from, and I would anticipate that the fence would, the gate would match the fence, top of the fence as well. So I want it to look like you. I want the appearance to be as good as it can be. So I would expect those to match each other.
Other questions or comments?
I have a question. Is the First Lady a business or residence, or combination?
That lady from the city can answer the question.
The First Lady is a wedding events venue. A wedding events venue. Yeah, it is a business, yes, sir.
We already have precedents to have a fence like that, although we do not have anything in our bylaws or whatever. I see no reason for us to turn this down. And as a matter of fact, I move, it be approved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please.
Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Bissell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Darden?
Yes.
Commissioner Draper? Chairman Hobbs?
Yes?
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner Riddick?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the motion has been carried. We move on now. We have one item of old business. Request for certificate of appropriateness, HLC 2021-0010, submitted by Charles D. Parr, applicant, on behalf of James E. McCrae, Suffolk Christian Church, property owner, for exterior material alterations to property located at 216 North Main Street. The property is further identified as zoning map 34G18, Block A, Parcel 77, Suffolk Voting Borough, Zone CBD, Central Business District, and HC, Historic Conservation Overlay District. Staff report, please.
Thank you. I'm going to give a very quick overview of all the information that was presented at the last meeting. So as you can recall, this property is located at 216 North Main Street. The subject property features a religious structure known as the Suffolk Christian Church. So the property does front on North Main Street as shown above. Here is two photos of the terracotta roof above the entryway. As previously discussed, this church has multiple roof materials on it. As you can see, the main roof has a standing seam metal roof. The tower, the photo in the right, has a copper roof. And then you have this roof. Essentially, the other tower has terracotta. These photos show that there's a portion of the church that has the slate tile as well. The bottom left-hand photo shows that some of the additions on the rear portion of the church has that white TPO membrane roof. Here is a photo of the existing condition of the entryway roof. You can see there's some broken tiles, and the flat portion of the roof currently does not have any type of roofing material. So this body at the meeting on April 8th, 2021, reviewed the applicant's request to replace the existing terracotta tile roof on the slope portion of the entryway with a roof to be copper metal shingles with a slate tile textured finish. And also proposed to have a copper standing seam metal roof to be installed on that flat portion. So at the time of the meeting, the applicant provided a photo of the Suffolk Christian Church dated 1907, which shows the subject religious structure prior to the alterations made to the entryway in 1951, as it was described in the National Register form. The photo shows that the entryway roof at the time the photo was taken had what appears to be a slate tile roof. According to the National Register of Historic Places, the church had most of the alterations made to it sometime in 1951, which modified the entryway roof, resulting in Tuscan-style terracotta roof. So following the conclusion of the public hearing, this body at the meeting on April 8th, 2021, voted 8-0 to table this request to the next meeting scheduled for today, May 13th, 2021. To allow the applicant time to consider alternative roofing material. So staff has received additional information from the applicant. The additional information provided includes an alternative roofing option in addition to the copper shingles with a slate tile finish and standing seam copper metal roof. So the applicant continues to request to install a copper standing seam metal roof on the flat portion of the religious The applicant is also proposing the previously requested copper metal shingles with a slate tile textured finish as the first option to replace the existing terracotta roof. The second option that is proposed is to replace the existing entry roof on the slope portion with the standing seam copper metal roof. It's shown just above the copper metal shingles in the photo. So the applicant did provide this third option that is proposed, which is to replace the roof with a synthetic slate roof in the color midnight gray, which the red box, it's not centered, but it is over the color that was chosen. As previously stated, the Historic District Design Guidelines states that historic roofing materials should be preserved and maintained when replacing a roof to match the original materials as closely as possible. So the proposed copper metal shingles with a slate tile textured finish, the copper standing seam metal roof, and the synthetic slate tile roof in the color midnight gray does not resemble the existing terracotta tile roof. The photo of the church provided by the applicant shows that the previous entry roof, prior to the alterations made in 1951, as stated, the photo may have had, or shows that the structure at the time may have had a slate tile roof. Since the entry roof was modified circa 1951, staff has determined that the terracotta roof has a historical significance to the current entryway that is highly visible from North Main Street. So after reviewing the Historic District Design Guidelines for roof preservation and replacement, the proposed alternative roofing material does not resemble the existing terracotta tile roof. As such, staff continues to recommend that the existing roof should be repaired or replaced with similar terracotta tiles, and any missing tiles should also be replaced with the terracotta tiles to match the original. So based on these findings of facts, staff recommends denial for Certificate of Appropriateness HLC 2021-00010. I am available to answer any questions you guys may have. Thank you.
Thank you. He will open the floor to the public hearing. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of the application?
Real quick, I would like to state that this is not a public hearing item. It's essentially a carried over or backlog item.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I'm pretty sure, and if the attorney would like to speak up for me, that it's pretty much just open for discussion at this time for the new materials. Thank you.
Okay, further. Okay, Mr. Parr, you ready to, you want to speak then?
Could she say what she said again, because I couldn't hear what she said
This is,
again.
technically, this is not a public hearing. This is just part of a continued discussion from the last meeting we had, so I'll just let you lead off then, and we can go from there.
Okay. Charles Parr, 1119 Pine Valley Drive. I'm the representative from the House of Worship at Suffolk Christian Church. Mr. McQuarrie's not here. The chairman of the House of Worship's not here. Are you Vice Chairman, Douglas? Or the secretary of the House of Worship is here, and Mr. Cheney, the roofer and contractor for that. We looked at multiple alternatives, and what we presented again is what we feel comfortable with. I know that everybody, that they don't care what the cost is, but we as a church are concerned with the financial cost and all that, and we would like to continue with what we've presented, one of those three options. Okay?
Other discussion from among councilman?
You asking for discussion?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I guess what's good for the gander is good for the goose. I'll leave it at that, sir.
I comment. I've been thinking about this thing hard for a whole month. To me, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. And if it's building a roof or if it's being on this committee, to me, there's only one thing that's right, and that's what I see when I drive down North Main Street. I mean, this terracotta roof there, the picture that we've looked at from 100 years ago, to me, is irrelevant. I know that terracotta tiles are available and made in Ohio. I talked to Ronnie Roundtree. He had domestically built made terracotta tiles for the Obusi House. Personally, I'm not in favor of anything less than doing the job right, and therefore I support the staff's recommendation that we reject this application. Other comments? Go ahead. Have a motion. Is there a second? The motion is to deny the application. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? We still discuss this issue. Larry, go ahead.
If I understand you right, you think it needs to be replaced with the
Terracotta tiles, clay
the
tiles.
tiles, and that this same color is available on the tiles with the multi-buried look. You say
People I talked to from a company called Ludowici or something out of Ohio, they got their own clay pits or something, and they do tiles for historic buildings, restorations, and that kind of stuff. I don't doubt they're expensive, but anyway, they set them on old and they copy them. They can make them any way you want to make them. So they are available, and I've talked to Ronnie Roundtree about when the Obusi House did theirs about 10 years ago. He didn't remember the name of the company that did theirs, but he had them specially made to fit to match tiles that had been on the Obusi House. So, I mean, to me, it's been there for 70 years. So,
maybe I've forgotten, but I was thinking at the last meeting that Mr. Cheney said that these particular tiles were not available in this color, but maybe I'm misunderstood, or maybe I have forgotten what he said. I'd like to ask him the question again. Maybe I misunderstood what he said. Are these tiles available in the same color pattern that's on the existing roof?
Good morning. I'm Ben Cheney, representing the roofing company looking to replace the roof. From the very beginning, back in November and December of last year, the first intent was to replace it with the tile, or we try to repair it or find something just like it to replace it. In short, to answer your question, to replace it with a tile like that, that tile wasn't made in Ohio. So the vendors I'm reaching out to the last 4 or 5 months, even the most recent conversation I had 3 days ago from Jeff Hatcher, who is the branch manager from Allied, who has access to all tile, they can't even touch it right now. You follow me? So we've known that for 4 or 5 months, trying to take and purchase that tile from Italy, made from the same type clay to resemble the same type color and finish. We're not able to do it. So to answer your question, to get a thought about what the church was thinking, initially it wanted to repair or replace it with the tile roof. Okay? So after that, if you can see in this picture up here, to the right on the one-story level, you can see the slate roof. So that's why they went with the second option. Well, we can go with a slate style roof, and then in correlation with the picture that they found, that it used to be slate up there prior to the tile roof, that's when the discussion started going towards the slate product.
Well, my question really was,
Yeah.
are the existing tiles available in the same color pattern? That's my question.
Okay. To answer that question, the company that can make those overseas, yes, they're still in operation. They're not, I'm not saying they're not making them now, but the distributors, the 5 or 6 distributors locally from Richmond all the way to Charleston that I deal with purchasing, does not have the ability to purchase them and have them shipped over here. So it is possible to have those very similar tile reproduced and made, but it's not, and I can't tell you when it's going to be available.
Well, my concern is if the existing pattern is not available.
Well, that, I mean,
And only an orange tile or red tile is available, that would not match the appearance of this tile. So that's my question to see.
Right, to answer your
if the
question-
original color pattern
It's not.
is available on the market. And I know, Mr. Kermit, you said that it was,
They don't keep them in stock,
Uh,
but they can make them any way you want.
but the original color pattern is
They
available.
they can stain them or whatever they do to stain them or fire them in such a way that's.
Well,
This is
just to
according
be
to
clear,
Natalie Naslin was the lady's name I spoke to yesterday.
Well, just to be clear, that particular tile, it's the color because that was the color of the clay when it was made. It's not, it wasn't, you follow me? That's what makes that tile unique, the color palette of it. Actually, that's what makes terracotta tile. Terracotta is the color of it. You follow me? It's what they call it that. Now, I'm very familiar because I've been in the roofing industry all my life. There are concrete tiles and synthetic tiles you can make that they can color, but nothing's going to match the original. I guess what you're asking, can the original look of that, it would have to come from the same dig. It's no different than natural slate. Whether you get it from Vermont or right out of here in Virginia, we have our own slate company. You follow me? It's going to look like where it came from.
But you're talking slate now, not clay.
Not tile, but tile.
And the clay, the color is based on how it's fired, how it's
Right.
tinted or whatever. It's not an issue.
And
of
it's going to
what
come
color
out
is
a
it, you got
different,
gray.
it's going to come out a different look every time it's fired. You're correct. So the odds of someone being able to reproduce that exact, I would say no. You can't, you can get it similar or close maybe, but that has a unique look because it's the same color all the way through and the age of it and how it was originally made.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Is the availability, and I know that COVID's knocked out all kinds of, supply chains around the world, is the unavailability of this tile going to be something that the COVID, post-COVID will cure? In other words, they can't do it now. Will they be able to do it in the next year? Let's say if they went back to pre-COVID.
The real issue with distribution now, when I put in the order for this particular product, when Mr. Parr talks about the cost, obviously I can't buy 450 square feet of this tile. It's a 1,000 square feet minimum. So I'm talking about to get it like this. So the cost is astronomical just to purchase it and only use half of it, okay? But the avenue in which you can get it nowadays, every distributor is dealing locally and in their state just trying to get asphalt shingles. You with me? That's the response I'm getting. Mr. Cheney, with everything that's going on, I can't even get but 4 colors of asphalt shingles now. And they make them in Oxford, North Carolina, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So they've called these plants and stuff. The particular plant that they dealt with over there, they're not shipping to the U.S. now, to answer your question. They can't give me an ETA, or they don't know when that will happen.
Yeah, and I understand that they can't predict the future, so that just like what station has gas this morning depends on who you ask.
Right.
My thought was, if it's been up there for 70 years and we have to wait another year until COVID, Lord willing, goes away and production can get back to semi-normal in these tile factories in Italy, would it make sense to wait until we can get a match instead of trying to?
Well, I think to answer your question, what we talked about earlier, you're not going to get exact, in my professional opinion, and I've done a lot of these tile roofs, metal, all of them look different, even though they can come from the U.S., someone makes them, or overseas. You with me? Because it is about the firing. So to answer your question, say it opened up tomorrow and we could get them, it's not going to look the exact same. So, I mean, that's you can bet on that. You follow what I'm saying? Because it's a natural product. It's not a painted. It's pretty close. You can go and match paint colors pretty good. When you're talking about doing clay and firing at temperatures and stuff, it comes out at different colors, and that's why that roof looks like it's all different colors. That's the best example of it. If you look at it, it looks like the reds may be 5 or 6 different shades, the browns likewise.
Kelly, did you raise your hand?
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity for giving me to speak again. Now, I know I was criticized on my last presentation, but in all due respect, this is a church. We have a professional here who's able to give us similar capacities of what we're trying to achieve. And this is one of the problematic areas that a lot of people in the historic landmark community are complaining about, that we're being so strict in our guidelines that we can't even accommodate our church. I think we need to be reconsidering some things here, and I advocate for it, although this is in the process of being denied.
Can I show you one? I guess a two-part of the roof installation is the slope section that you see, and then it's the flat roof. We haven't really discussed that. But the standing seam copper roof is this here, you follow me? And up on the flat roof, like if you see in this picture here, you really wouldn't be able to see it. So the idea of going, if this was approved on the top, to have the copper slate shingle, the runoff from this, the natural patina, the turning and everything would complement the copper slate shingle. You follow me? And then the copper slate shingle will give you the same thickness, depth, definition look of the slate that you can see on the right side, but on the left side towards the back, there's another slate area. Does that make sense? And plus, I had one more picture. I don't think I got it to you in time to put it up there. It shows that right side slate. And the idea I was thinking is, I don't think I saw it. No, but my point is, when you're coming and the church is on the right-hand side, and you look to the church, you see all that slate there on the right side, and then you see the terracotta tile over the front. The idea was to go with copper because it would still make that entryway unique. You follow what I'm saying from an aesthetic standpoint? So when you come, if we went with this fake slate here, this fake slate here is the same slate that's on the OC Healthcare Foundation building on Finney Avenue. So it turns, when you put it on, it looks very close to real slate. But if you put it on there and you come down, you'll see the slate, then you'll see the slate on the entryway. And to me, the entryway don't really stand out. It kind of blends in with the rest of the building. So a lot of consideration, a lot of scratching my head, trying to figure out what's appropriate for the church. What could the church put up there? A lot of this damage that you see, if it's leaking on the top of the roof, you have to climb over that terracotta tile to get to it. There's no entryway. The windows do not open. There's no access. So if we could, to answer your question, if we could get the same thing and put it up there, the first tree limb that hit it or the first leak on the flat roof, we're crawling back over it again. And then you possibly could be damaging it again. So, but this was the copper standing seam that was going to go on the top. So I guess we hadn't have any, there's no discussion that that's not appropriate. Is that fair? Question? Has there been any discussion? As far as on the flat roof up top?
Yeah.
Because the idea, if the copper would be up there for 80 to 100 years or more, and nobody would have to get up there later to service
Really, the
it.
motion is just that this is denied, so that we start from scratch then, again, discussion, I guess, on whatever would be the next phase if we vote to deny that.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Well, my main concern is that any replacement tile is not going to look the same, the terracotta. And I would rather personally see it go back to the 1908 picture where there was slate roof with the raised seam copper at the very top, which you don't even see anyway. So, like I say, I think replacing the terracotta, I don't think will look like it does right now. I just don't think so.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're trying to put a wagon wheel on a Duke Oldsmobile Cadillac. Let's just go ahead and advocate for the church. We're not going to go back to 1900. We're in 2021. I think we should make some accommodations for this church in regards to what the gentleman is trying to achieve. As I stated earlier, we're being very problematic. We're being very strenuous in our guidelines. whereas we're accommodating some aspects and some rules, but we're not accommodating others. I asked you to put that in consideration.
Mr. Bailey, I agree with you on that. And so I interviewed several members of the church, and they had no idea that this was going on. And so therefore, I actually questioned whether your congregation would support the plan. And if your congregation supports it, that's a completely different angle. But the several members that I spoke to had no idea that the removal of the terracotta tile was an option. And they absolutely adore their terracotta tile because it sets them apart from the other congregations. So I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, Charles to speak on that.
So, House of Worship went to the executive board, which is up above, and everyone at the executive board was told about it. Obviously, the Board of Trustees is in charge of the property, which Jim's not here. But that was, everyone in the church knows that we're here to apply and all. And I haven't heard anyone that said it specifically. I guess they could have called us and told us. But I hadn't heard anything from that. I haven't heard anything from the minister about anybody being opposed to it. But that's the first I've heard of it, so I would love to, afterwards, if you'll give me their names, I'll call them directly to discuss it with them and all that. But like you're saying, that's the first I've heard of it. So, I mean, we went through the procedures, because we can't just, because we're the House of Worship, willy-nilly come up and present something. So we have to go through all the steps. We have to get the money allocated through the finance department or finance committee, and we had to go in front of the executive board for them to approve. And everybody on the executive board is a member. Each individual member on the executive board is a member of each committee there in the church, all the way down to the Sunday school class director. So what you're telling me is I'm ignorant to that fact because no one said anything to me, but I'd be surprised. And Michael, and I talk with Michael Halley all the time, Reverend Halley, and there was no mention of that. And we've had no communications whatsoever through the House of Worship, through all the committee members there. And we just had a House of Worship meeting 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. And we talked about coming in front of the commission again and all, and what we were going to present. And they were in agreement and heard no thing about any church members. But I will also say this. You can't get two people to agree no matter what. So if you've got 500 people in your church, not everybody's going to be happy. Because some people want it the old way all the time. But sometimes the old way is not the right way.
Let me ask.
So, yes, sir.
Are we looking to get just enough tiles to go with the ones that are there? Are we looking at getting enough to do the job?
No, you got to replace it all, because I'm not a roofer, but I've got a contractor's license, but you don't know what's underneath of there.
I agree.
I mean, and I don't think I forwarded her the pictures of the inside where the plaster and all is deteriorating and that. So you don't know, when you take that off, you don't know what you're going to have underneath there. They're going to have to repair that. That's part of the thing, but it's like any roof. When you take a roof off, you don't know what the sub base of the roof is. So you were going to have to do some of that anyway. So you might as well take it all off. And there's no need to put brittle tile back. I mean, it's old.
Thank you.
It's just like a human. You know, the older we get, the more brittle we get. I'm not brittle yet. I still got about 10 more years to go before I get too brittle. But you don't, and the fasteners that are up there, they're old. The stripping, I'm assuming there's stripping underneath there, isn't it, Benji? So the stripping to attach it, that could be deteriorated. It's like any wood that shrinks and expands. So, I mean, you would have to, if you're going to do that, you got to take it all off and do it right.
Thank you. And so my point is that we're not trying to, it doesn't have to match exactly every tile that's up there, but if you could find some equivalent tile that looks right, that has the same general look, it doesn't have to match every single tile that's up the old tiles. That's my perspective. I'll say one more time. If you look on the website, look at the tiles they make. They custom make them to match, to me, it's a non-issue. And I mean, professional, they're doing a job in Durham, North Carolina now for an historic house. That's all I need to say. And yes, sir, go ahead.
Just a thought, and I know on architectural projects of some scale, it's standard to build a mock-up so that everybody knows what the whole building is going to look like to avoid, buyer's remorse later when you find out that the color you picked really looks awful at that scale, at a large scale. This project is so small, it'd be highly unusual to get a sample panel, but the thought occurred to me, if this place in Ohio could come down and say, okay, show me a 15 square foot section that's typical of existing terracotta, and have them create a sample panel to mimic that area, and then you have something to measure with to say that's close enough or that's way off. And I know sample panels don't come cheap and special orders don't come cheap, but if I was the architect charged with matching it and push came to shove, I'd say, the only way we're ever going to really know is to have it right in front of our face and say, yeah, it's okay, or no, it looks really, really bad, or it's too uniform, or it's too varied. There's so many, like you say, it's old tile, you've got a lot of age on the glazing and, crazing and all kinds of other stuff that happens. So is that possibly an option?
I guess the best option, possibly, I could take one of them off of the original, because just so you know, my history in the roofing business is all I've ever done. I've been to every roofing expo, whether it's in Vegas, San Antonio, COVID last year, knocked it out. And I've seen every synthetic Luigi tile that they make. There's nothing that looks like that. You understand? And if you get I don't have the synthetic slate that I brought you to show you, that's a flat piece of material. So it's pliable. Because it's a softer, pliable material, they're able to bevel the edges to resemble real slate. You follow me? Once you start taking synthetic materials, plastic basically, or anything, and try to curve it, it requires a harder plastic. You follow me? It has to be hard to support that. So whether it's, if you get a coated or a coated concrete tile, the majority of tile you're going to see in the U.S. right now, if you take a cruise or fly to Miami, you see 90% of them are concrete. They're concrete with coatings on the outside. And that coating can wear off in 20 or 30 years and you can recoat it. You follow me? But to answer your question, I can get you the samples, I can take one off and I can give it to you. There's nothing synthetic or concrete made that looks like that. The texture, the exact color, the feel, the weight of it. You follow me? But I do agree, if you take it all off, you can choose one of these and do the whole roof, but it's not going to look like that. Does that make, if I'm explaining that correctly? It's not.
Hey, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further questions? Any other further discussion?
I got one question for Mr. Paul, and I assume I'm reading this correctly. The church's third choice was a synthetic slate, and that's agreeable to the church. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. My position, as I just said, was I don't think you can match the clay tiles to have the same look, and I would rather the church use a slate tile which matches the 1908 or 1910 picture. Who's to say which is more historical, the 1908 roof or the 1951 roof? And I'm inclined to think that the 1908 roof is the more historically accurate roof for this church. And I don't think they can match the 1951 terracotta tile. So that's just my position.
Motion we have on the floor is that we support the staff's recommendation. Ready to vote? Okay, we have
I call for the question.
We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bailey,
I do not support the recommendation.
Is that a yes or no that you support or do not support? Yes,
Do not
support, or no?
I do not support, sir.
Commissioner Bissell? Vice Chairman Darden?
Yes.
Commissioner Draper? Chairman Hobbs?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
No.
Commissioner Riddick?
No.
Commissioner Turner? The vote is 4-4.
So,
4-4.
I'll make a motion
wait,
that the board accepts the recommendation of the church, that we accept the third recommendation, which is a slate tile roof on the front and the raised seam copper metal up on the top. That's my motion.
do we have a second? Guys, without a second? Second.
Excuse me.
Did
Mr.
you
Chair.
say you seconded it? Yes. Okay, so we do have a second. Further discussion on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
One of the things that bothers me is to hear that they have not even carried this to the church. I know they have various committees, but I think it's good to be as transparent about things as anything you can. Whatever committee decides to do, or the elders of the church, or whatever you call them in a particular church, it should go before the congregation for a vote. So that's lacking according to what I'm hearing. Now, some people can say, I didn't hear anything about it, well, then maybe they need to go to church. I don't know, that could be the problem. But on the other hand, and I don't like it, that we are not the consideration to consider the cost of doing a thing. So we didn't make the guidelines, but we need to follow the guidelines as commission. And they do have an avenue. They have an avenue of appeal through the city council, and chances are they might shoot us down. It's been done before. So maybe we'll try it. But I think as commissioners, we should try to be as true as we can to what we signed up to do. And we are under obligation, in a sense, because it costs us things to turn it down. That's what's driving this whole thing, the cost of it.
Bailey, were you going to say something?
I concur totally, because if we're making a motion, Mr. Parr and his constituents, or rather his fellow disciples, will still have to go and be transparent to the church. If we make a motion and they haven't been communicated with, then how is that going to work? So I think it still needs to be recommunicated with the church, and they have an official say-so in regards to what we see as being a motion. That's out of order. And churches operated in decency and order.
If I understood you, Mr. Paul, the church would accept any of the three recommendations that y'all put forth. Is that correct?
That's what was, all of those things were proposed. The house of worship, they advanced that to the finance board and to the executive committee. I'm not on the executive committee. I'm just a member of the house of worship board. The chairman.
I mean, you got three proposals here. Are you saying that?
They're okay with any of those three. Because they just want the roof to quit leaking and the plaster to quit falling. And they want to do, they have allocated a dollar amount. And if we do tile, how much more is tile than what was allocated? Is it double or triple or what? So we would be going from 20-some odd thousand to upwards of 50, depending on what's underneath of there.
Yeah, I'd point out again, the question of whether.
And I know you guys aren't in charge of, you don't care about the cost and all that, but, you know,
Right.
for some people it is a factor.
Right, I understand that. another point I was going to make is that there's nothing in here about, in our guidelines about whether the church voted or not. I think that's, I mean, we've got a motion now that concerning the third option. That's the one on the floor now that you made it.
That was my motion.
Yeah,
on
and
the
that was the
third
second,
option.
and that was
Now,
second. That's the one that's on the floor right now.
Right.
Go ahead.
Now, if the church's position is that they rather not make that motion, I'll withdraw that motion. But I understand, if I understand it correctly, the church is willing to take all three, any of the three options. And that's the position of the church. So I'm making the motion that we accept their third option, which is the slate, which resembles a 1908 church with the raised same metal at the top. That was my motion.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Well, that's the same motion that you just made.
Already did.
Yeah, that's the same motion that you had already made. You'd already
Motion I
seconded.
made before.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Further, any discussion about that one?
One comment. I think Charles was out of order in saying that we don't care. I do care, but I'm under the law, so to speak, to vote the way I did, because that's what we have followed to. And they did have the procedures followed. And when they say the committees, 3 committees is not the church. So, I mean, it's not like the whole church word. And problem, I would probably guess that 100% of them would back it. But yet and still, you've heard comments that some people say they didn't know anything about it. I just think that's wrong.
All right, so the motion we have then is that we allow vote, a yes vote would be to allow the church to go with the third option. Am I reading you correct? Okay, so we have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Bissell? Vice Chairman Darden?
No.
Commissioner Draper?
Motion again, please.
I've writing that down. Could you read the motion? Could the secretary read the motion?
To approve the third option, the slate tile.
But, yeah, it's
It's the slate tile with the standing seam copper roof.
that was the third option, was okay, so where were we?
I'm gonna vote no on that. No.
Okay.
Chairman Hobbs?
No?
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner Riddick?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner? Votes 4-4.
About, we tabled it one time, and we still got questions to be discussed, you know, the questions of the matching and whatever other questions that we got. Could we bring something further evidence next month to?
Chairman, I feel that the same options were presented to us the first month as were the second month. It's the same information, and therefore a new idea needs to be brought to the table.
Why can't we take what Mr. Cheney proposed, send the company one of the, call it, and see if in fact they can match that?
That would be the responsibility of the applicant.
Works for the applicant. And he'd be the one that would take the,
Correct. But that would not be our responsibility.
I'm just saying, he said that, and I'm just suggesting, well, let's try that.
Well, at this point, we have not approved the motion. I mean, we have not approved this recommendation, which says that it has failed. So I'm not sure what's the proper procedure to withdraw it and come back again with another one.
I think they got 2 choices. They can go ahead and try to do that, or they can appeal our vote.
with the city council.
Well, okay, I guess. Got an attorney here. Any wisdom?
At this point, there isn't an affirmative action by the board either way to deny, basically not render a decision with a tie vote. So, and for all intents and purposes, a no vote, I mean, a failure to deny is no action. So,
Basically, the application has failed. Is that what you're saying?
well, the statute has been denial of the application. A vote denial has not been accomplished. So there's not a denial of the with this tie. Appeal at this point, that's my initial reaction. So we need by this board to actually have a decision one way or another of the appeal.
Say this motion, this application has not been denied or in the next month. Go see it, Mr. Parham.
You
Yep.
need to ask the attorney if I know y'all closed.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Name anyway.
I want him to verify that.
Okay, go ahead. Speak.
That's okay, attorney?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would propose that you table it for 30 more days, if we can get a mock-up or whatever. And then I'll ask Ms. the people's names that were on the roof, and we'll go and talk with them and all to make sure that press those so that everybody's, and then whatever comes up, if it's not feasible, and then party people say, well, we don't want the tile up, we'll come back.
Let me ask the commission for somebody. Did they give us a motion that we willing to do that? Table it for
Second.
a motion to table it for another month. All right. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
yes. Commissioner,
Yes.
Chairman Hobbs, Commissioner King,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have that much motion. Well, an enforcement update, please.
Good morning, the Chairman, and I'm Susan Dillard, Property Maintenance Official, to bring you the code enforcement for property maintenance. We have 342 North Main Street that has extensive property maintenance violations, peeling paint, deteriorated roof, porch, and exterior walls. This property is currently in court, and they were given a continuance for progress or to comply with the violations. 179 East Washington Street, again, property maintenance violations, deteriorated exterior walls, windows, and doors. This has previously been in court, and they were fined. We've reissued new notices, current notices for the current code to the owners of the property. 130 South Saratoga Street. This property was received extensive damage through the hurricane last year, and they are now applying. They have a CUP in progress for mixed use. 239 West Washington Street, again, a hurricane damaged structure. Windows were damaged, and the owner is hoping to have the repairs made by the end of May. 219 West Washington Street, again, hurricane damage, extensive damage. This property has a sale pending. 253 West Washington Street, property maintenance violations, peeling paint, flaking and peeling paint, and exterior wall damage. Repairs are pending. The owner hopes to have the repairs completed by the end of May.
Thank you.
And that is it.
Any questions, comments? Thank you. We have a zoning update, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question,
Yes, go ahead. Yes, sir.
the fines, are they being collected and does the money go into the general fund of the city of Suffolk?
Ma'am, do you know the answer to that question? Where's the money for the fines go?
It's actually being collected.
The fines for the violations, go ahead.
When we have fines, they're collected by the treasurer's office and they go into the general fund.
Okay, thank you. All right. Zoning.
Good morning once again. My name is Melvion Knight. I'm the Assistant Zoning Administrator and Enforcement Manager for Community Development. The following items that we have listed, there's been a slight revision to our report. There was one item left off, but the report goes as followed. We currently have enforcement open at 128 Brewer Avenue. The violation that we're enforcing was working without a certificate of appropriateness for the removal of a brick wall. The notice was sent on August 31st, 2020. We're currently working with the property owner to bring that property into compliance. The second property is 129 Brewer Avenue. This property is also cited for working without a certificate of appropriateness for the change of the paint color on the exterior of the building. A notice of violation was sent August 31st, 2020, and we're currently working with the property owner to bring that site into compliance. The last site is 111 Linden Avenue. This property received a stop work order on 10/23/2020, and a notice of violation was sent on 10/26/2020, and it was for making repairs and replacements to the front porch railings. We have not made contact with the property owner, and we will be reissuing a notice to them by the end of the week. That ends the report for the zoning violations. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Any of those? And finally, we have administrative approvals.
Morning. Since the last report, we have two new administrative approvals. One that was issued on April 20th for a new sign, and one at 521 West Washington Street, and one on May 5th at 118 South Broad Street to replace a 3-tab shingle with architectural shingles.
Questions, comments? Thank you.
Anything is after the fact? And what's the stand-in on those after the fact people who did not
Would you comment on that?
get a certificate, yeah, I get one. What is being done about that?
Sorry, go ahead.
Repeat the question again.
And what people who, they go ahead and do what, if they want to do something to the back porch, the front porch, go ahead and do it and don't get,
So is your question what happens with it after the fact certificate of appropriateness?
are they issued? Do they have to get one? Is
They
that fine?
do. So it depends on what they do. Sometimes the after the fact needs to come before the board in terms of a major action. Sometimes it does need to go before staff. The after-the-fact fees are much higher than if they had come to us without doing that.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Okay, there being no any further business, meeting will stand adjourned. Thank y'all.